We are starting off with our first Living with LHON panel. And as I said in the opening, this panel was created at the 2014 conference where I first moderated our first panel. And it was such a success that it's been an ongoing panel every year, and it's actually grown to 2 panels every year. So we typically have one on one day and another one the following day. And it is a fan favorite, as I call it, and I've heard from many, many folks who have said, I binge watched the Living with LHON panels when I was first affected because I needed to hear what others were going through and that I wasn't alone and that my thoughts and feelings were just like somebody else. And we typically have a variety of folks on our panels of not only affected, but we also get perspectives from spouses and partners, from moms and dads, from sisters and brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, kids of affected parents. We've had a whole variety. So there's somebody over the past almost 10 years that you probably can relate to on our panels. So these are something that we will always do, and they will live forever on the YouTube channel, and they are there for the future folks who need to find us. So again, it is one of my favorite things to do. So that's a little bit about how the panel got started, and it's been a wonderful tradition, and it's something that we will always have for you. I'm going to start the introduction of my first panelist. She introduced herself already a little bit over there. It's Jessica Knight, and I'm going to pass it along to her to tell her LHON story. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here with all of you today. This panel really means a lot to me, and after hearing a little bit about me and my journey with LHON, you'll understand why. So I'm affected, and I was introduced to LHON in January of 2021. At the time, I am 33 years old, happily married, raising 2 kids. Everything's going great, besides COVID, right? We were all just ready for that to be over with. So I'm waiting on COVID to end. And at the end of January, my husband and I decided to go out to celebrate his birthday. And before we went out, I had asked my mother-in-law to take a picture of us, because if I'm getting cute, I need proof, right? So she took a couple pictures, and I kept telling her, I was like, these are blurry. They're blurry. I take a new one. And she's like, they're not. I'm like, they are. But so that was that. Then the next day, I was traveling for work, as I used to do often. And I noticed something was off, something was odd, and I called my husband, and I was like, maybe it's these new contacts, because I've always worn glasses, and I finally decided to bite the bullet and try contacts. So I made an appointment with my ophthalmologist, and I have a good rapport with him. I've seen him for a long time. And he was doing the vision test on me, and I could tell some concern in his voice when he was doing the eye chart. And he said to me, "Is that all you're seeing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm seeing everything that's up there." He's like, "No, you're missing half the chart." So he was like, "Let's get you in with a specialist." And I'm like, "Okay, here it goes. Here's a slew of appointments that I had no idea I was about to embark on." So that's when the craziness really begins. And at this time, they told me I could get in with the specialist, but it wasn't going to be for 2.5 weeks. And by this time, my vision is declining rapidly. I'm no longer driving. I'm still working, but I was like, maybe I need to get in with that specialist a little bit sooner. And they were able to get me in, and more appointments after more appointments, to finally And after every appointment, it's a letdown, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm getting to go see a specialist. I'm gonna get answers, and then I wouldn't. And it's so frustrating. And I'm used to being that mom who was running my son to baseball practice, and taking my daughter to her extracurricular activities all the time, or just running them wherever. And that was being taken away from me, and I couldn't figure out why, and it was just a frustrating time. And everybody in my life is, really showing up for me, and my support system was very strong, and I was fortunate for that. And so finally I'm able to get in with a neuro-ophthalmologist. But remember, this is in COVID era, so a lot of these appointments I'm going to by myself, or I'm in the room by myself. And I met with her, and she had said, this is gonna take me months to figure out. This is gonna take me months, I'm not sure what's going on with you, and I was, again, disappointed. I get a phone call about a week later, and she's like, can you come in tomorrow? And I said, tomorrow? I thought this was gonna take months. So now I'm thinking the worst, I'm really scared. We drive down to Atlanta, and I'm sitting in the room by myself, and my husband's in the hallway, and he was able to be at the appointment via speaker on my phone. And I get the news that I have Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, that my vision loss is permanent, that this is my new normal, and I was told that my vision would never improve. I was defeated. Pretty much, have a nice day, this is what it is. I just cried into Chris after that appointment, and I was like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna tell our kids? How am I gonna be me? How am I still gonna be the same Jess? I was so upset. And I remember that was a pretty hard time for me, and that was big, hard news to hear. And I remember speaking with my father, and he's always shot me straight. And I was having a pity party for myself at the time. And I said, Dad, I just don't want to have to relearn everything I've done for 33 years. I don't want to not drive. I don't want to learn how to reuse my phone. I don't want to learn how to reuse a laptop. And he said, but you have to. And I said, okay, Dad, if you said so, I have to. And he encouraged me to get a second opinion. And I'm so glad I did, because I did get in with another neuro-ophthalmologist. I was given the same diagnosis, but I was also given compassion and a bunch of direction on where to go next. And I was really pushed to this community. I was pushed to LHON.org. And that's where my journey really begins, being here with all of you, if it wasn't for her. And I kind of went down a rabbit hole with LHON.org. I went to the conference tab, and I was like, what is this? What is this? And I remember, I'm like, there's so many other people out there that are affected, and they're having normal lives, and they're raising children. And I remember I was able to find a mom on the panel, and I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's when I really jumped into this community and wanted to be part of it. And I joined my first LHON live call, and I was introduced to so many people in this community who welcomed me right away. It was like an extended family I never knew that I had. I just remember, random Wayne calling me, or just random people reaching out to me, and it was so nice to just connect with these folks, and they could meet me where I was at, and it really truly meant a lot to me. And without everybody here and my support system at home, my husband, everybody really stepped up for me, and which makes me want to push through more. Now I'm a big part of the community, and I do our Southeast calls. I really, really enjoy what I do. And my hope is that one day, if someone is struggling and they go to the website and they get their diagnosis, they can relate to my video, and it makes them want to keep pushing through. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I can so relate to everything you said. Being a mom when I was affected as well, and wondering, how am I going to do this? I need to talk to another mom, and but 10 years ago, trying to find videos and things were, they just weren't there. So again, another reason why we do these and we record them so they stay forever for folks like Jessica and other folks to find and go, there's people like me. And, or there's a mom like me or a spouse like me kind of a thing. So anyway, thank you so much. Again, very relatable, and I'm sure relatable to some of you out there. Our next panelist is Xavier Marsh, and I'm gonna let him take the microphone and tell his LHON story.
Hi, can I sit back? Okay. Hi, I'm Xavier Marsh. Thank you for having me. Sorry. I'm 15. I lost my vision about 2 years ago. Being in middle school, I had the middle school drama of losing my vision, where I'd be missing half of all my classes. I'd go to the doctors, and at first it was during summer. I was told by my annual physical, my pediatrician, he told me, Xavier, you're gonna need glasses. I'm like, no, I don't need glasses. I don't want glasses. In middle school, it's all about what people think of me. No, I'm not doing that. And then I went in to get my glasses, and they're like, no, you don't need glasses. This is something weird. Then they first thought that I was lying, trying to get out of school. I'm like, no, I promise you, I'm not lying. You can have that at size 200. I cannot see it. And then they thought I was gonna die because they thought I had a brain tumor. Not dead. Finally, I got the genetic testing, and I was told I had LHON. I was like, well, what does that mean? And I learned so much in these past 2 years. So a big part of my entire life and like kind of who I am has always been sports, and like it's been a big coping strategy for me, and like moving on, kind of just running and throwing things and doing anything that helps me kind of get anger out. So the 3 sports that I kind of really helped me through my process. I didn't get really in depth into all of them, but they all really showed something to me. It was mountain biking, rowing, and basketball. They all really showed something that I can still do, and it was powerful for me. In basketball, I just learned from my doctor how I can still shoot a basketball, because how can a blind person shoot a basketball in a 10-foot hoop and not be able to see the hoop? I see maybe parts of the pole at some points. So I just learned from my doctor a few months ago that he gave me a whole science thing, but in roundabout way, subconsciously, I'm still able to recognize things. I'm still able to comprehend. So it was really interesting kind of to learn all the sciencey parts of it. But I learned that like, I'm still seeing, I'm just not sure that I am seeing. It was really weird, a whole weird thing, but kind of inspiring to tell me that I can still keep pushing forward, and maybe I can take a sport that I did for the past 7 years, maybe I can continue being blind. In rowing's totally great for blind people, besides for one thing. Rowing, you can't see where you're going either way for anyone. You're looking backwards, besides for one person in the back of the boat, named the coxswain, whatever, they can see where they're going. But for warm-ups, you have to run a mile along the beach side. And we were running the mile, and one of the days I found myself alone. And a cement walkway is like a tannish color or whatever, and then a cement bench is also a tannish color. Not a great contrast situation going on there. So I was running along, and I came across one of my friends. I'm like, all right, cool, I got someone to run with now. And then he's like, hey, let's race. And I'm like, okay, sure. And so he's not racing on the cement, he's racing on the grass on like kind of the next to the beach. I'm onto the cement pathway. Maybe we should have switched, but we're running down, and then we're not running anymore. I ran directly into a cement bench. I have a dent on my shin, red mark along, for the next 4 months it changed colors along it, from like green to purple to red. I was so disgusted, but I became Superman. I flew over a 2-meter bench, not touching a single part of it besides for the one part that I hit the shin on. I was like, wow, I didn't know people could fly, but I learned they can. So that was really fun. Kind of helped me learn that, like, maybe take a step back and look where my surroundings are. understand a little bit more. But I had to kind of rethink a few options there. But with mountain biking, that was kind of the same, besides for I had one of my best mentors recently has been Blake Steineke. From the beginning, he lives about, I think, 10, 15, 20 miles away from me in San Diego. So he told me, Xavier, come over to my house, let me tell you my story, and then let's go mountain biking. And I'm like, okay, you're crazy. But I come over to his house, we talk for a little bit, and then we're on mountain bikes, flying down a hill. What does a blind person do besides for like, okay, and now I'm flying down, and now I'm scared. So I'm thinking I'm gonna fall down now, okay, maybe now. I'm waiting for it, and with all the fear crossing my mind, there was one thing that also kept crossing my mind, one thought, and that was everything I used to do as a sighted and what a middle schooler would call a normal human being that was like the average Joe. I can still do all of that. It's just I'm gonna have to do it a little bit differently. And that was really awesome for me to learn. Maybe I don't have to be so critical on what I've been doing and maybe what I can believe in myself on. So that kind of helped me push forward. A big part of me is in Boy Scouts. So we've always done rose, bud, thorn in Boy Scouts, which means we do it for campouts, but I'm gonna do it for my life. Rose is my best part, bud is what I'm looking forward to, and thorn is my worst, and how could it have gone better? So my thorn would be all the injuries. I did fall down mountain biking once. Well, me only a little bit, but my dad, that was fun. We were also with Blake again, and my dad fell. And then my thorn, it was really fun, but I learned a lot from my thorn, and I kind of figured out who and what can I do better, and who am I, and it helped me push forward. So maybe that was a rose. Bud is meeting more people. I've loved all the people that I've met so far, from the few faces that the voices that I've met here, and the people that I've met in San Diego. My rose is learning so much about myself. I've kind of figured out as a 15-year-old, a lot of the stuff that I was doing as a 15-year-old is not the best, and I've become so maybe different, and I love learning that everything you can do, you still can, it's just gonna have to be done a different way. That's been one of my biggest kind of mantras. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. That was amazing. First of all, that was amazing. Your parents must be so incredibly proud of you. I'm a mom, and I'm feeling super proud of you at this point. And I live in San Diego, and we had to come to North Carolina to meet. So, maybe we'll meet up some more when we actually get back to San Diego. But thank you so much. I love the rosebud thorn, and I think all of us could probably take that little bit of advice away from Xavier's talk, and knowing that, you know what, go for it, because you never know what you can do until you try it. And you may fall down along the way, but Xavier is an example of getting back up and keep going. So wonderful, Xavier. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to our next panelist, and she is Dani Ort, and we're going to pass it down to her to tell her LHON story.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Dani. I am here with my husband, Terry. Terry is affected. He was affected about 5 years ago now in 2018. We live in York, Pennsylvania. We don't have any kids yet. We'll see what happens. But we do have a puppy dog, and we are happy there in York. But when I talked to Maria, she wanted me to kind of give the perspective of a spouse where I knew Terry before he lost his sight and then went through that with him. So I'm going to kind of start from the very beginning, not just when he became affected. But we actually have been together 10 years, so 5 years unaffected and 5 years affected. We met in 2013 and actually met in his garage. He's a very big car guy, so lives, eats, breathes anything with a motor, basically. Does anyone know what a burnout is? Yeah, okay. love at first burnout. So the night we met, he did this big smoky burnout on a dirt bike. I was like, this is kind of cool. And I was always into motorcycles. We actually had matching motorcycles when we met, ironically. So yeah, we kind of had that passion of motorsports, and it's kind of grown from there. He actually got me into racing my motorcycle, and actually since being affected has built me a truck that I also drag race. So we definitely share those hobbies. From like 2013 to 2015, we lived in our first home. I was in undergrad for my biology degree on a pre-med track. And again, we were just enjoying our hobbies together: Jeeps, drag racing, motorcycle rides, all of it. I then went to PA school, so I am a certified physician assistant. Terry helped me through all of that, and it was also before he was affected. I joked that I was an investment because he basically supported us while I was going through school. And I was traveling a lot for clinicals and that sort of thing, so he took care of the house. He was fantastic with all of that. I graduated in May of 2018. A couple months before that, we had moved into a new house. I had just taken my boards and passed. Everything was lining up. So, new home. I'm starting my career. I already had a job lined up in the fall. And then we're going away for Memorial Day weekend down to the beach. And he's like, I was trying to weld the other day, and I can't see through my welding mask. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a brand new PA, so I'm going to do an eye exam. So we're at home, and I'm doing extraocular movements and that kind of thing. But it really just came down to visual acuity. He covered one eye, and he could read the piece of mail I was holding up, and then he covered the other eye and the piece of mail, his hand, my hand, everything was gone. So instantly, I'm just like going through the files of everything I just learned, and I'm like, this is really bad. You should not have one-sided vision loss. So we went away to the beach, and before we even left, though, I called his family doctor. I was like, can we please get an ophthalmology referral? I won't, all of our stories are very similar in that you usually get a couple misdiagnoses before you get the true diagnosis. But one thing that was different that I kind of wanted to make a point on for sighted supporters and family members is if you're not getting answers, just keep pushing. And that's coming from a healthcare provider. We don't always know what the answer is, and it's usually the patient that's like something's still wrong that we actually kind of push through. So misdiagnosed from an ophthalmologist, sent to a retina specialist. He said, your retina's fine, but you need to see a neuro-ophthalmologist because I see some inflammation on your optic nerve. And I'm going to order all these tests first. So you're going to have to get all the blood work and the MRI and all of these things before you even get in with neuro-ophthalmology, and it could take a while. I think 2 days went by, and I'm like, no, we're not waiting for all of that. So I took him to our local tertiary care center, Hershey Medical, and went right into the ER. And I said, we have one-sided vision loss, and I want him checked out. So then we got, all the blood work and all the imaging within an hour, not within several weeks. And the ophthalmology resident came, and she was like, you're right, this isn't normal. We want to see you tomorrow. So from the time he told me something was wrong till the neuro-ophthalmologist said, I'm pretty positive this is LHON, was 2 weeks. So our story is a little bit different there. And then 2 weeks after that is when we got our genetic testing back. So within a month, he had a true diagnosis. So yeah, that's just one of the pieces I wanted to mention is that if you're not getting answers, or if maybe you're a carrier and you're noticing something's wrong, just keep complaining to your healthcare providers to get some answers. After we got that diagnosis, I was obviously doing what any healthcare provider would do and read everything I could possibly come across on LHON, including medical journals and that kind of thing. I stumbled across LHON.org, which is fantastic, which then led me to the Facebook page, and I got on there, and then Alyssa was in my inbox. She's like, hi, welcome. Who are you? How do you know LHON? I'm sure we've all been touched by her, and I can't thank her enough for everything she's done for us. But yeah, she's like, here's all the resources. There's this great conference in 2 weeks. You need to come. At that point, we were just like, whoa, this is too much. Like, hang on, we're still processing this. Thankfully, we did come to the conference the year after, and I don't think I ever want to miss another one, because what you get from this conference is unlike anything else you're going to get through. Even, I mean, the Facebook is great and the calls are great, but meeting people in person and actually getting to share each other's stories, and for me to talk to other spouses, and they're like, yeah, I get it, we are Uber drivers, it's fine, and just having that family feeling is really important. Let's see, so kind of fast forward a little bit, a couple months after his diagnosis, he proposed. I always joked, I'm like, hey, it's been about 5 years now, what are we doing? So he did propose, and then we kind of started trying to figure out how life was going to work from there. There was definitely a lot of bad times, especially those first couple years, but I think the important part was that we kind of leaned on each other when we needed it. I started my job as a physician assistant, and right around that time in the fall is when he actually started working on the truck that I drag race, completely blind. So it's kind of one of those where, he would give anything to be able to be behind the wheel again, but by getting me involved has kind of helped keep that passion alive. And when I mean he built a race truck, he built it from a completely stock truck to, what it is now. And it was a couple years that went by, but I remember he called me into the bathroom, and he was in the shower, because that's where he does all his thinking. And he was in the shower, and he's like, Dani, what vehicle would you always want? I'm like, Terry, I don't know. Like, he's like, well, we got to build you something. He's like, I was always thinking, regular cab, short bed Silverado. I was like, sounds great. So he went on the search and found one, and he did it all. In September of 2020, we got married. That was also car and motorsports themed. I know he probably showed you guys a couple pictures, but he actually drove, he has a old 72 orange Chevy pickup, and his best man was going to drive it with all of the groomsmen in the bed. And we were at the venue at the rehearsal dinner. He's like, you know what? I think I can do this. So he actually, not that I condone, driving, but he actually got behind behind the wheel, and his best man was kind of his co-pilot, and the groomsmen were in the bed, and he very slowly kind of drove them up, and they got out, and the whole audience just went crazy, because it was just really cool to see. Since then, so basically our lives now, he still works on vehicles. He still builds performance vehicles for friends, as well as our own. We also have a passion for Jeeps, and he got a buggy, so it's like a very big go-kart that he can drive over rocks and stuff like that, so we take that off-roading, so it's a safe space. But so even like Xavier was saying about his sports, even though Terry's sport he can no longer do, there's still ways that he can be involved in it, which has been great. A couple key points just from a sighted supporter is it's rewarding to be able to help your loved one, but it's not always easy, and it's okay to not be okay. It's been an emotional journey, as you can probably tell in my voice, but it's okay to need to take a minute and just be like, I can't be there for you right now. Like, I can't support you right now. I need to take a minute to myself, collect myself, call somebody, cry, whatever. And then you go back to helping them along. There's going to be good times and bad times, but you also need to enjoy things together. And I think that finding those things that you can enjoy together, like we still love to travel and that kind of thing, and meet new people and experience new places, having those things that you can bond over together are really important, because it's going to be rough, especially if you're newly diagnosed. And always remember that that affected loved one does love you. Sorry. Even if they're having a bad day and they're taking it out on you, it's not you, but as you guys probably know, you're going to be hardest on the people closest to you. So just remember, you're not alone. We are all going through that. We're so happy to be back at this conference. Thank you so much for having me. Sorry I was trying to hold it together and I knew it wasn't going to happen, but thank you for allowing me to speak.
I think we're all gonna need a minute after that. Dani, what can I even say? That was amazing. That was amazing. And your emotion is warranted, and we feel you, we hear you. Even as an affected, we get everything that you said. And I love that Terry has found a way to still be a part of his sport. I did meet you guys the first year in 2019, and we spoke. We had a speed meeting, and I ended up just sticking with them and talking to them for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, y'all go on, I'm here. I'm gonna talk to them. And it was their first meeting, and it was kind of that shell shock of, whoa, but we know we need to be here. And I've told many people even last night, it's not where you wanted to be, but it's where you belong, is here. And I think that's the Orts felt that way from their first meeting. And in turn, I knew reaching out when I saw them registered, I knew Dani would be a person to have up here as a sighted supporter and a spouse. And knowing her husband from sighted to blind is quite the journey for her as well. So thank you so much, Dani. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. We're gonna pass it along to our last panelist, who is Rob Packard. And Rob, tell us your LH1 story.
Yeah, thank you. It's just been so amazing being here. So many people like yourselves that are just so inspiring. I know we have cameras somewhere. I can't tell where they are, but you know, this should be the lead story on the news tonight, right? Massive crowds are gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina tonight, giving new hope to survivors of medical mitochondrial mysteries, right? Like us, LHON, right? So I was a TV news reporter, photographer for about 20 years, and then became a nurse for 10 years. So I love media and medical mysteries. So we're all cast into this medical mystery together, right? Unexpectedly, without even auditioning for the part. Here we are. Right? Survivor Blind Edition, right? So we can go out with our canes.
Oh my God.
Right? I don't know. But it does seem sort of surreal. Like sometimes we're in a suspense thriller. Like one time I was trying to walk along with my cane, practicing like a good newly blind person, and I heard, you know, like someone was throwing bricks at me, I don't know why, but you never know what a day's gonna bring, right? So I started, so you learn speed cane walking. Just kind of going, and get to the nearest shelter. So, you know, and sometimes it's kind of like a screwball comedy. I love your story about running. I was trying to run a few months ago. I can run again. I used to run, I still do sometimes 5Ks, and all of a sudden, I had hit another brick that was on the ground that I didn't see, broke my foot. And so there I am on the ground, and a man, must have been in his 90s, came up to me, and he said, "You need this more than me, here." And he gave me his wooden stick cane, left me with it. So thank you very much. Got up and hobbled to the nearest pharmacy and got some Motrin. And actually ran a 5K a month later. Anyone who passed me, I said, "Hey, nice job passing a guy with a broken foot who's blind, but you know, put that out on your bucket list." But I finished it very slowly. But the real scene, the real story with LHON started for me about 2 years ago in the midst of the pandemic. As a pediatric nurse, it was a very busy, chaotic, stressful time, and worked on a great unit in Ann Arbor with amazing nurses. And children were coming in, obviously with respiratory and their parents' illnesses, worse than ever. Because I'd worked in the media, I would be the guy with the cell phone that when I got a break, I'd make a video thanking the nurses, paying tribute, promoting patient safety. I wrote one song called Down with PPE and gathered the nurses together. I don't know if I should attempt a few seconds, but it went, P is for personal, people's lives are saving. The next P is protection, saving people from infection. You gotta take your mask and glove and shield and eye protection. But hey, don't be missing the next step on the scene. You gotta take your hands and do your hand hygiene. All right. And so things were going, well, it was the pandemic, so it was stressful, but things started getting blurry. And even with readers, I needed really good readers. So we went to the eye doctor, and he said, close your right eye. And I said, yeah, I don't see anything out of that left eye, really, no, not one letter. The right eye was still fine. So they decided that maybe I had cataract. They replaced the lens in my left eye, and it didn't get any better. They said, you're the mystery man. You are beyond our measures. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of amazing. Like, you know, being beyond a measure almost. But I was able to still continue. One eye doctor who happened to only have one eye that was functional said, you can continue to work and drive with one good eye. So I kept on going and could still see the patients. And then one day I came in for my shift, and I looked down, and I was supposed to take 3 children for patients, and I could not read what patients I was to take in that night to see their name. And I think I thought maybe the charge nurse had bad handwriting. And I went to look up my orders, and I could no longer see the computer orders to read what I was supposed to do with for the children. So I got report from the nurse that was had the children before me, and I thought I'll take really good notes. All right, I have to give 31 mils of this, and of course that lasted for a few seconds. I care too much about the safety of children, so I said, I'm going to have to stop you. I can't see what I'm supposed to be doing here, and I'm going to have to take a break here. And they were surprised. They, sent me downstairs to the ER. So I went down there. I remember my very last shift, I worked there. A little child came up to me, and I'd been there for 10 years, and gave me a hug. And he had no idea what was going on in my life, but he said, I love you. And that was, I knew in my heart that could be my last day there. And went downstairs, and I did more investigations. Did the optic nerve scan and saw there was some withering, but they still didn't know what it was. So I went home and waited and went to more specialists around the area. I made one more video basically saying, let's all get together, let's solve this medical mystery and cure blindness for all, so I can get back to work. Let's just do a viral video and maybe someone will provide an answer. My cousin, his name's Glenn, he'd been in the entertainment industry, and he shared that video. He'd made a movie himself. He was a choreographer for Michael Jackson, and he had some connections to TV as well, and it got shared all over who knows, hundreds of times. Actually got a call, if you remember Casey and the Sunshine Band. Casey contacted me and had some experience with blindness, but still no answer. And finally they sent me to Miami, Baskin Palmer, Dr. Byron Lamb, where the first time I heard that I am legally blind, and they believe it was LHON. And that takes some idebenone, recommended. So I did the genetic test, and then it came back. So finally I had an answer. But at that point, I just, sort of retreated to the basement. I could no longer drive. That last day at work was my last day driving home from work. I had had a dream earlier that I would be driving, and I couldn't see the color of the lights. And at that last shift coming home, I couldn't tell if the light was red, yellow, or green, so I hung up the keys. Of course, everyone was safe on the roads, thank goodness. And I didn't know what to do. So I just waited. And eventually we got in touch with the Bureau of Services for Blind Persons in Michigan. And a woman, Sue Root, recommended that I go to the school in Kalamazoo where they retrain people for their life skills. And doctors agree that's probably the best place. You have to relearn. You have to start over. It was a depressing, sad time. I wondered when I looked at loved ones, will this be the last day that I see your face? And it really became overwhelmed with that and sort of, I don't know, sad, of course. So I went to the school. My friend dropped me off there. And I'm sitting in the cafeteria, and that's when it sort of hit me. Here I am in this cafeteria with my tray of food. 3 months earlier, I was driving, I was taking care of kids, and now I'm just here, living here in this life that I never expected, never planned for. And I just sort of, put my head down and cried. Because everything that was there was gone. At least it seemed that way. And then at the school, you hear other students, kids from 18 on up, and they're singing. They were doing karaoke and the living room nearby. And they were excited to be there. Many of them had no vision at all, prosthetic eyes, but they were like, hey, we've been blind our lives, and this is our new start at a new future. And it was infectious. It was like at the end of The Grinch Stole Christmas, right, where they all start singing, and despite their gifts being taken away, life continued anyway. And I just thought, wow, there's hope. And I met one young man with LHON who'd had it for 5 years, affected, and he says to me, and he took me aside and he goes, Rob, I know it sucks. I know it's hard. And he goes, you will relearn new ways to do what you've done before, except drive, but, you will relearn. And he said, I'm happier than I was before. And I'm like, wow, thank you, Obi-Wan, for new hope. And at the school, it was cool because I could play a little piano, and the kids who'd been blind all their lives, they knew how to do JAWS. So show me how to use JAWS, I'll show you a little bit on the piano. Happened to be the same school I'd learned later, system that Stevie Wonder went when he was a kid. But that's a great example of someone who finds focus and moves forward. So we found new ways to learn new things. And I learned how to type on JAWS, and I heard a song on the radio. All my rowdy friends are coming over tonight, if anyone's heard of that, Hank Williams. And so I was like, oh, all my blind friends are coming over tonight. Yeah, all right. And then I learned how to use my phone, to use the voiceover, the magnification, and even hooked it up to a 70-inch TV and figured out, like my friend said, new ways to do what we had done before, like you were talking about with some of your loved ones there. And eventually we gathered the school together and we sang that song and made a music video together and pretended, used our canes as air guitars. And that's out there somewhere on YouTube. But yeah, you keep on going. One of my loved ones, after I got out of the school, would introduce me to everyone as we go into a restaurant and say, he's blind, he's gonna need some assistance with the menu. And I had my earbud in, and I scanned the menu into my ear, so I knew the menu, and And I said, I don't know what he's talking about, but anyway, I'll get the pizza. So get to have some fun with it, moving along. And, and so little by little, there's more hope. You learn and move forward. And recently, I was able to renew my nursing license, using Seeing AI to scan over what I needed to read. I went back to my nursing unit, and I, using my phone and adaptive equipment, made a video, kind of a music video tribute to a nurse that was retiring who liked to sing and work. So it was sort of like coming back to what I've done before, volunteering with kids. So there's been just little lessons learned. I'm a father of 2 and a grandfather of 3, and I'd like to think that going through this, while it's been hard, it does refocus, and you have kind of time to reflect, reset. My manager on my nursing unit, I was always kind of wanting to be in a hurry, maybe find a way to regain my vision or regain my skills or get my job back just like before. And he said to me, Rob, this is not a race, it's a marathon. So don't think you have to solve everything right here, right now. And I really took that to heart, that every day you can learn something new, something. I can't solve everything, but I can maybe learn something new for myself or someone else, reach out to like we were reaching out to each other. So it's just been amazing the way that can happen when we all get together and unite and learn from each other. I just got an apartment on my own and am able to learn to use the bus and navigate transit directions to go where I need to go. So it's he was right, you will learn new ways, but except for driving, but even that, you can work around it and find ways with all of our friends. I just flew here for the first time, taking a trip on my own without a person with me. And that was a little unnerving at first, but people were amazing at the airport. The flight attendant, when I got into the seat, she drops a menu on my lap, or not a menu, she said, here, this is Braille safety instructions so that you can learn. And I was like, oh, thanks. Let me see. Wow, you all are very safe here. This is great. And I said to her, there are a lot of other ways that folks who are blind find ways to do things. And I opened up a book that I had grabbed for the trip to go through on the airline. And I said, look, watch this. Seeing AI, go to documents, and snapped it. And I had it read it. It was a random page. But the page said, I am my own version of an optimist. If one door won't open, I'll find another. And if that door doesn't open, I'll make a new one. Things can be terrific, even in the darkness. I was like, wow. I just showed, that makes my point, what I was trying to tell her. There are many ways to move forward. And one of the things I wanted to kind of close with is when I was using the train to go back and forth from the school back home, I took a journey and I was sitting next to a man I was sharing my story with him, telling him I'm going back to this school for the blind in Kalamazoo, trying to restart my life, figuring out how to move forward, and he nodded. And then at the end of the train trip, we get to Kalamazoo, and he pulls out his cane. And he goes, well, I went to that same school as you did, and I have a job here in Kalamazoo. And that's where I'm headed right now, to my new job. And I said, your story has a happy ending. That's awesome. And he said, no, yeah, my story is still being written. You know, like Maria said the other day when I was talking with her, that I didn't come this far to only come this far. Our stories are always being written. There's no finish line. There's always hope and goals, but every day, you know, keep on moving forward. You know, like we talk about survivors. It's kind of a buzzword, right? LHON, survivors. But I believe we can be LHON thrivers. We can be more than we were before, and I've seen it here today with people who are here who are doing new things better than before, maybe not exactly the same. So it's just amazing. I don't know where this is going to go next. I'm still navigating through this and exploring healthcare and media, but just glad to be here, inspired by you all. So there's a book that I read that really hit home to me. Krister Indy, I think, See Bad, Feel Good. Mm-hmm. And that quote that he said, good thing we don't think with our eyes, right? We feel with our hearts and think with our minds. And I think that's one thing that when you have this, you want to get across. I'm still me. I still have those same things that I did when I could see. And, you know, it's just, we are hoping for cures, of course. And maybe there's someone here today that with something to take or inject or something, but rather than waiting for someone to come up with a great cure, we do what we do. We learn, we move forward. One of the lines from that book was, we can put our lives on hold, but why do that? Keep your life on, and then whenever a cure comes forward, we're already doing okay. So, you know, I really appreciate the chance to be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob. Just so much great stuff. I love the quote that you read to the flight attendant. I mean, that was brilliant. I mean, that was divine intervention that it happened to be that page.
Yes.
So amazing. So amazing. And I share the love of quotes as well. As we said, I shared the one with you. We didn't come this far to only come this far. There's so much more for us out there. And once you get that in your head, there is more for us. No matter what age we became affected, there's more for us. And we just need to figure out how to get there and what road we're taking to get there. And but it's a struggle, and it does take a lot of time. And it takes time. Rob, thank you so much. That was amazing. And I'm sure folks may have some questions out there for our panelists. So I'm going to have Mary, and if there's another mic available, Jim, to run around with mics. Please raise your hands if you have a question for just a particular person up here, or if you'd like the whole panelists to answer the question, please let us know that. And mic runners, I need you to let me know if you have questions. So hopefully, you know, get those hands up if anyone has questions. And let us know who you are when you ask the question.
I'm Susie, and Dani, I just want to know when Terry decided he was going to build a truck for you, had he just taken out a big life insurance policy?
No, but we have since then. So.
Yeah. That's good. Any other questions?
We got one.
Okay.
Xavier, I hear you join our teen calls. Tell the group a little bit about them, please.
We talk about a lot of stuff for the teen calls. I love it a lot. It's been a great kind of resource for me. In the beginning of when I joined it, I think that was about a year and a half ago. It was really kind of powerful because I didn't really know where I was really. I was still kind of learning what is this, what's happening. And I learned from all these kids that we were talking about like normal teenage stuff. It's still normal. It's not that I have to be some extreme, like crazy human being. It's still I'm a normal human being. It's just living with a new, fun, interesting fact in my life. So that was really they helped me kind of move forward. Run by Mr. Journey Points and Oath and Miss Molly, I don't know, Miss Molly. Molly Knox.
Hello, my name's Tim Johnson, no relation, from Charlotte, diagnosed 1 year ago. Question, what is the most interesting or exciting thing any of you guys have done, or, since being affected?
So I'll start since I'm not here too. I started about a year ago dabbling in archery. So people go, yeah, how do you do that? Did I turn it off? I'm sorry. I started about a year ago dabbling in archery, and everyone just does a double take because they're like, yeah, how do you don't see? No, I don't see the target. I can't see the target. So it's a whole new sport, and my partner Jim has helped me along the way to try to get that more adaptive for me because I loved it before I lost my vision. And so bringing that back into my life was very, very cool. And it's a fantastic sport, but again, done completely differently when you can't see the bow, you can't see the target. It's just a very new way of doing things. So that's kind of exciting and different. When I tell people, they kind of go, but you can't wait. And I have to just speak for them because they're at a loss of words when I tell them that. So that's something new and something exciting that I do. Jessica?
Something exciting I did recently, I have 2 children, and we went to celebrate my 9-year-old's birthday, and they had an indoor zip line. She was terrified, and I'm terrified too because I can't see what's going on. She was so scared, and I was like, well, if I do it, will you do it? And I did it, and I was impressed with myself that I was able to do it. But she did it right after I did it, and that was a big deal for us because I was scared too, but I didn't want her to know that. Don't tell her, guys. Don't tell her. I didn't want her to know I was scared as well, but I thought that was pretty neat and something special we got to do together.
She's gonna find out when she listens
I know.
to the audio. Just saying. Anyway, Xavier?
Yeah, all the different sports I've tried. It's been kind of fun just learning how much can I do. So I've tried all the way from mountain biking, rowing, basketball, skiing, cross country, track and field, doing the throwing and the running events. I tried a little bit of tackle football with my friends because that's all tactile. And that's been real fun. Just once I can find their body, I can just like throw them on the ground. They're down. I've learned somehow with like just the innate sixth sense, I can still do dodgeball. So I've been playing a lot of dodgeball with my friends. As long as I can see a blur moving, it adds a little bit of contrast, and I chuck towards it. I have about a 40% chance of hitting them, so it's been kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I love it.
Do you want me to speak on it for Terry?
Yeah, speak for
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know. Terry, would you agree the rock buggy? It's probably, yeah. He's like, yeah. So yeah, that buggy, like I said, it's like a big go-kart. The tires are like 40-inch tires. So when we go, it's an off-road park and there's different trails and stuff, but he's also like climbing over boulders, like not just rocks, boulders, and doing like hill climbs, up and down. And basically his dad will co-pilot him and just be like, okay, tree to the left, keep it right a little bit. And then sometimes he's like, tree, and that's usually when he runs into one. But that thing's indestructible, so it's fine. And for the most part, he's going slow. But honestly, that thing, he can kind of floor it up some hills, which is kind of cool. But I would say that's one of the most exciting things he's been doing.
That's awesome. I always like to do extreme sports, sort of. I don't know about that, but relearning, doing some of those. They, one of them, like crossing the street, was, so when I was at the school, they hooked me up with these monoculars. I don't know how many people have binoculars, scopes, but I had gone 6 months where the way I would cross the street is I would go, everybody stand back. And if it's quiet enough, hope that they see this. But that was awesome when they gave me this and I could see walk, don't walk. I'm like, why didn't I get this 6 months ago? So that was helpful. And then with tools like this and scopes and that, I restarted to paddleboard, kayak, downhill ski, and with help from a friend who I wore a bright vest and stayed close enough that I would follow the friend. They let me on the slopes as one of the conditions that we don't go down black diamonds, and I was fine with that rule. So, but I've 2 grown children and 3 almost grown grandchildren. I just love to take these lessons that we've learned and maybe continue to do some of those things that we've done before. It's great, relearning these skills. Yeah. Thank you.
Question. Great question. Anyone else?
We do have one.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Julie Poinsano. Jessica or Rob, but Jessica, I guess for your younger kids, what was that transition like? Like, how did you explain it to them? How did they take it? What was their reaction? Like, how did that kind of go?
So yeah, that's a good question, and it was really, that was the hardest, one of the hardest things in my journey to figure out how to do, because as I said earlier, I was always one of those really active moms. I was everything to do with the school, sports, you name it, we're doing it, right? And so with my son, he's a little bit older, and it was really, really gut-wrenching for him to hear that, because he just kept hoping that I was, you know, this was just a fluke, and to have to tell him that I wasn't going to be able to see like I used to, was really hard, and I just remember him breaking down and feeling really sad. But that's why I'm here, because I want him to see that I can do anything that a sighted person can do. But I can't drive, but they do have self-driving cars, so maybe one day. But I can do anything, and that's the biggest thing. I just try to show them that just because I can't see doesn't mean that I can't do. And my daughter, she's still a little bit younger. She doesn't really understand it yet. As she gets older, we'll have that conversation, but she's still just 9, and I don't think she's old enough to really understand it. But I will sit her down as she gets older and have that conversation with her. But it has been a transition, for sure. But I have to a shout out to both of them for being such troopers and, you know, accepting me for what I am now. And, you know, they still have a great life, and I'm still their mom.
I'll mention a little bit on that. Jessica and I have talked about talking to our children, and my son was 19, my daughter was 12, just turning 13, going into high school, which is a great age and a great time to have your mom go blind at that age. And, you know, my kids are 6 years apart, so telling them was very different. And actually, I'd never told my son. He approached me and said, I heard you on the phone with your doctor, what's LHON? I'm not ready for this. And so I actually blurted out, can you still see? Can you still see? Because I thought for sure he was going blind tomorrow. And he's like, I'm fine. And so I said, well, this is what it is. And he said, oh, well, I've already Googled it. Of course you have. And the one thing he said to me, Mom, I want you to know it's not your fault. And of course, I lost it again when he said that. And I said, I'm going to be fine, because I was also the mom. I did everything, drove them everywhere, did everything. And I said, I'll be fine. And we talked a little more about it. And my daughter was more, kind of, I treaded lightly with her. Again, she was going through a lot of right out of middle school into high school. It's a really delicate time for a girl. And, but we did have a moment where she actually had a big breakdown and said, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I'm so sorry this is gonna be happening to you. And she felt she had to be strong for me. And I told her she didn't need to be, that I was still strong enough to handle it and it was gonna be okay, even though I didn't know it was gonna be okay. But, you know, I didn't wanna burden my children with what I was going through. And I didn't want him to see me in my darkest moments either. And so I was, you know, super mom, I'm strong, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. I needed my kids to be okay, because that's what we want as parents. They're gonna be fine, we'll make it through this, it'll be good. And I said, I was telling a friend, I never wanted my children to see me break down and cry, and because we all have those times when we become affected. And they said, why not? And I said, because I'm the super mom, I'm strong, we do everything for our kids. They go, but if they never see you go down, how will they ever see you rise? I was like, oh, again, another, you know, ism. And I was like, you're right. So, not that I, you know, got hysterical in front of them all the time, but, you know, I did have my down days, and I would tell them, you know, I'm just feeling a little down today, but I'm okay, I'll be okay, because I always was. I went through it, I would be okay. But, you know, I think it's really important, as Jessica said, you gotta take consideration the ages. And I didn't tell my daughter she was gonna pass this at that time. She didn't need to know that at that time. I waited for another time to have that conversation. And, well, she has a 2-year-old now who is the joy of our life, and I can't think of, you know, our life without him. But, you know, she's well aware he is also a carrier. So I think it's a very delicate thing, and handling it is whatever your way you think is best to handle it is your best way to handle it, depending upon your situation. So that's what I wanted to add. But I do have I talked to a mom my first call, reaching out, and I've talked to 11 other moms since then, and the conversation is how do I tell my kids comes up almost all the time. And like I said, Jessica and I've had that conversation with my kids being a little older, so, you know, and I'm sure a lot of other moms who became affected after they had children, you know, already had grown children, would have lots of good advice, so always seek that out. And I think that was a great question, Julie. Thank you.
Yeah. The daughter who I raised is now 35 and raising her 3 children with her husband, and she sends me messages, love you. I want them to be busy with their lives and their adventures and doing their things. My son is 19 and in college, doing really well and amazing. And what I want him to know is that no matter what happens in life, you know, you're always going to have a hurdle that will come forth, either the challenges that we choose or the ones that choose us. Eventually, if you live long enough, every one of us here will have a challenge of some form. And I just hope that that I have more to offer him by going through this. You know, I remind him how much I loved driving him around when he was a little kid and going places, and now he drives me places, and it's great, you know.
Yeah.
So they've been understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mary, any other questions?
And 2 more questions for you, if I may. I'm not picking on you. I just want to learn from you. You were in school, and this happened. How did you manage continuing in school? What was the process to continue to be successful in school? That's one question. And then friends. How do you get your friends to do they treat you the same? Did they treat you differently? Did you have to do something? How did that all work out?
That's a very loaded question. I think the first one, I was in school, I lost my vision, and my entire goal, I still am learning how to take help. It's been one of my biggest flaws throughout this. I've always wanted to try to find ways to do things on my own. So when this happened, I'm like, all right, cool, a new challenge. how can I not get help? And maybe not the right mindset. I learned recently, taking help is not gonna be my worst outcome, it might be my best outcome. And I need to start doing that more and better. But when it first happened, I had an iPad. My school was actually, it's weird, my school was all non-technology. So when I brought an iPad into school, they're like, whoa. But I brought it in, finally they accepted me. The teachers still didn't fully understand. We had to work through, and I talked to all the teachers individually, and I kind of explained to them, just treat me like the other kids. Think of me as normal, but try not to make weird mistakes of like this, that, this on the board. Try to say 5 times 5 or whatever. That is the best way to help me. And we still said the this, that, this. We finally learned over 2 years how to help me in the final month of my 8th grade. We got there. But with my friends, everyone takes it in a different way. The good friends that are still with me and that I still keep in touch with, they answered the call, and the other ones were the ones that when I first told them, they told me, "Oh yeah, how many fingers am I holding up then?" And I'm like, "Well, that's a bad question. I don't know how to answer this for you." So I would take a guess. I had a 20% chance, but that's not the best way. But the friends that are still with me, they ask thoughtful questions. But the ones that really are not, even worse question, they ask me, "Hey, can I catch it?" They heard it's a rare disease. Disease meaning I can catch it maybe. And I'm like, no, please work with me. So we had to work through all that, and it was kind of fun working through and talking, and maybe they respect me more, maybe they don't, but I think we all learned, and new challenges arise with friendships, and that's how you grow them. So.
Awesome. All right, Mary, anybody else?
All right. Well, so Xavier, you were talking about the iPad. Rob, you mentioned the monocular. Just maybe each of you, what have you found to be the top 1 or 2 technologies, tools, techniques through daily life that you turn to?
I'll start. My iPhone. My iPhone. I use it for emails, social media, looking stuff up. I use VoiceOver on it. I do use Zoom feature magnification, which many of you hear phones talking like nonstop. That's VoiceOver. Or my iPad. I also use a desktop where I have a Mac, so I do use some accessibility features built into the Mac, magnification, zooming in, speech. And I'm able to do pretty much everything. Like I said, I create all the social media that we put in the groups. I can create images again. I actually graduated with a degree in graphic design and communications. So all of a sudden I can't see colors and it's blurry and all of that. But I have found a program that I can use zoomed in and feel I do pretty good considering the vision. And so I've been able to, but I just strictly do that on my desktop where I used to be able to do all the little creativeness on my phone. But again, finding another way to do it. So I'm gonna say my iPhone, iPad, and my desktop are, my iPhone especially, it keeps me in touch with everybody. It's not just a phone, which we all go to. I talked to Rob. It just becomes a phone after you become affected. And then all of a sudden you do learn accessibility, and all of a sudden I can do all of this, and you just hope that all the apps and the different things are accessible, which they not always are. But you find what works for you, and that's what you use the most. But I'm able to keep up, just on the iPhone and not even looking at it, using all VoiceOver. Jessica.
I have to agree with Maria. So what things I tend to use the most, which is great. There's never been a better time to be blind, right? I didn't know what my iPhone or my iPad could do. So what I do is I use the accessibility features on my iPhone, from the magnification to the screen readers. I'm thankful for my husband. He does a lot of stuff for me too. I use Zoom Text on my work computer, and I use my iPad for everything. My iPad's my best friend. And for TV, I love audio description. When I was introduced to that, I was like, this is amazing.
My phone and iPad. My iPad, I have a button that if I hit the home button 3 times, I can turn voiceover on. But when it's on, I first turn it on, it immediately starts talking to me. And sometimes I'm just like, just woke up, or I'm about to go to bed, and I'm like, I'm not ready for that. So I want to control, and like, it's like kind of having a leash on a dog, not letting it run off, just making sure that you and him or her are here together and understanding each other. So I have that button. One button that I love is speech to text. I don't know how I turned it on, but on my phone and iPad, it's a little tiny button that I can move around on the screen, and it's not voiceover, but it has a similar voice but not the same, and it can like, you just touch things and it will, or text to speech, but it'll do things for me. So I love that button. And on my phone, just audio all the way, with from books to phone calls. I think I preferred phone calls over texts, but yeah, it's my favorite ones.
So one thing I want to mention is just like, try everything, because Terry's tried everything, and some things are great and some things just aren't, and that's okay. Like, what one person uses, another one might not. And he's not a techie guy, he's a car guy. So he doesn't use like the JAWS or Zoom Tech, because like his job doesn't require computer use. So for him, honestly, he kind of prefers more of the minimalist tools, like his magnifying glass, and his text blown up really big, and his magnifying glass. Definitely talk to text. I was going to mention audio description as well, because I used to be the audio description when we would watch Netflix, and he really got upset when I'd fall asleep. So having the audio description so we can still enjoy television programs. But yeah, so some of the tech, and like he doesn't even use a tablet at all, you know, so what works for some people might not for everybody else, but try everything. Yeah.
I love your question, because when this first really affected me, I someone said there's voiceover on your phone, and he tried to help me by going on the internet, and he turned it into voiceover, and I was like, it doesn't work anymore though. I press a button and nothing happens. So I was like, this is frustrating, and I just abandoned my phone and go off of anything related to it that your phone can bring you, and now it's like, feels sort of like, not to do another movie analogy, would be Iron Man uses technology so we can get through the day, right? We have all these little tech things that can help us get through. And then using the earbuds, I only use one so that people don't think that I'm completely shutting them out. But a couple came up to me on the street out in Ypsilanti, and they said, we're trying to find this restaurant and we're lost. Could you help us find it? And I didn't have the cane next to me when they said it. And I said, yeah, walking directions to Bobcat Bonnie's. And I let it walk me over to the area that they were trying to find. And then I pulled out my scope and I said, see, I even have a scope to identify the restaurant. It's right over there. And the couple said, wow, you should be a guide for a living. So it was thanks to the iPhone, right? Helps a lot.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Narinder. I'm here with my daughter, Jasleen. Jasleen was diagnosed last year, January or so. She was 15 at the time. So my question to you guys, from your stories that you've told us today, from what I'm understanding is that you guys are the first in the family maybe to experience this or to be diagnosed with LHON. With Jasleen, she's the only one in the family. I'm not even a carrier for LHON or the mutation. So do you know if there's other family members and no one had ever expressed, the gene was just not expressed, or, I mean, I know Maria, like, with Jessica or the others. Like Xavier, he's very young. He's about Joseline's age, and I don't know if any of his other family members had it.
So I guess, so my sister did get tested, and it was positive. So again, just another verification. When I was the first one that we know of. We can't find anyone else in the family line. So my sister, because it's my sister, she said, I'm gonna get tested to be sure. And it was positive for the same mutation. So we knew for sure we both had it, and of course assumed that our children, and plus her son became affected a few years after me. So again, another validation and confirmation that they did carry it, as far as my family goes. And then Jessica, your first one.
Yes, so for my family, I am the first one affected with LHON. My mom's side of the family, I know them all very, very well. And so we went back, I think it was at least 3 generations, and we couldn't find it anywhere. I just got to be the lucky one.
Yeah, I'm the same. We looked at, I knew my grandmother. My grandmother never became affected. She always lived an entire sighted life. Then my mom, the same. And then me, just randomly at 13 years old for a physical. Finds out the fun.
For Terry, so it's actually kind of interesting. He had his maternal uncle was actually affected, but we didn't know. So he kind of knew, I guess. He had been tested back in the 80s, I think it was, and he had a positive diagnosis, and we knew that he couldn't see well. But I don't know if the doctors at that time just didn't explain it well enough, or maybe they just didn't understand that, no, this can be passed down, and because his sister, which would be Terry's mom, no one explained to her that she would be a carrier and that she could pass it down to Terry. So we just knew that his uncle couldn't see well, and then his uncle ironically had passed from other illnesses about 6 months before Terry's diagnosis. So we sat down with Terry's grandfather, who was his uncle's primary caregiver, and he kind of described, how his uncle had, what he went through with his diagnosis. And he had just told us at that time, yeah, he has like this neuropathy. And I'm like, okay. But then he found some old medical records. And so I, looked through them, and I was like, it's right here, like the 11778 mutation in his chart. I just don't know if it just wasn't explained well or not. But to our knowledge, I believe that's the only other affected family member who, like I said, is no longer with us. So he's kind of on his own in terms of family. Yeah.
We have one cousin who became blind in her 50s like me, and I passed away about 20 years ago in her 50s. She was living down south, so we didn't have a chance to see what she was going through, but I can imagine about 20 years ago there wasn't all the help that there is now. So I have no idea what she went through, but that's the only one in our family that was affected. My mom has 3 sons. I'm the oldest. My 2 brothers are not affected. And between the 3 sons, we've had 7 sons between the 3 of us. So that's...
And I did want to mention, I did forget, he does have a cousin as well. I blocked that one out. But yeah, it's a 2nd or 3rd cousin, I believe, who we're trying to get to come join us at a conference soon. But yeah, that would have been his mom's cousins. His mom's cousin, one of her daughters, is now affected.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I do want to mention, though, I think what you were saying is that your daughter is affected, but through genetic testing found out as the mom, you do not carry the mutation. Is that correct? So we do have somebody else here that is in that same situation. It's super rare, obviously, Jennifer Malika. So you may want to connect with her. Same situation. So just mention that. So we have maybe one more question, if there is. Mary?
Where does this
Yes, Maria?
Oh,
As far as
sorry.
my grandma, my great-grandma, I mean, where is it coming from? Is it just something that's mutated now? I don't know how to describe what I'm saying. It's like, maybe years ago it never was diagnosed, but we're talking about generation or whatever right now, but where, it's just now, where, although I have found that people here had it already 50 or some years, and it's like, wow. But like, I am a carrier, but my mom is 90 and we haven't tested her, but did her mom have it? Where did it come from?
I think the big it's a mutation. I think that'd be a great question for our science session later today. Let's get the doctors in on that one. But yeah, that's a great question. Where did it start? Where did the mutation start? Great question. And again, we can maybe throw that to our science panel later. So please keep that question. Or Lissa is running our science session, so she can maybe bring that up during that session. So thank you for the question. So we're going to wrap it up here. We're just about at 12:30. And I want to thank everybody here for their story. Very different, yet very much the same. Just an amazing panel, and I knew it would be. And Rob finished strong with a little rap music, and all of you had so much to contribute. And thank you so much, and thank you for your wonderful questions and being such a wonderful audience here today for our first LH1 panel.